Off here, but if you guys have questions after this, we're going to kind of throw out to you guys. This is going to be sort of a free-formy, jazzy little Q&A here. Not a lot of rules, but if you guys have questions, raise your hands, and I promise you we will get to as many of you as humanly possible. So, where do we begin? How do you guys have been working on this movie 6 years-ish, give or take?
Yeah, don't rub it in. It's a long time.
Well, I mean, it's a long time for fans too, who are really excited about what's coming next. We're all here waiting for you. And as you're prepping something as complex as this, how do you? What does pre-production look like? Is there a lot of storyboarding? Is it like that conspiracy wall with ribbons tied to everything? How do you guys keep what you're trying to do in place so it does make sense? If not on the first viewing, on multiple viewings, it's all there. And the science is rooted in some sense of reality.
Yeah, before we get started, thank you so much for coming to a theater to watch this movie, guys. Yeah. It's so special that Alamo is hosting this and that we get to actually enjoy this film with other people. Like, we made this film specifically for this experience, and so I'm like, thank you for supporting Alamo, thank you for supporting this movie. Like, this is very exciting to us.
You're the first people who bought tickets.
I know, this really means a lot.
Thank you.
But yes, the funny thing is, Swiss Army Man, we decided to not read any books at all about screenwriting. Said, like, I want to go in.
Yeah, we decided.
No, we did. No, you specifically were like, let's not read anything. Let's just go and make something, and just follow our instincts. Because, for better or for worse, that's how we made music videos. Like, we followed our instincts. We didn't really study many music videos. We were just like trying to make things that we thought we were excited about, and we were like, let's try that with a movie. And there was some goods and bad that came out of that. But with this film, we knew that it was going to be too much and too big for us to process without, proper structure and stuff like that. Because we knew we wanted to make a movie that was a 3-act movie that then exploded and then became a nihilistic mess where no one cares about anything, including the audience. But then wondered, can we pull ourselves out of that and bring ourselves back from the void and bring us into a new plane of, story existence, and that was the goal.
So Quan read all of the books.
I read all of them.
And we did charts on the chalkboard wall. And
just like literally
cards.
The whole wall, just lines after lines of different storylines, just like 15, 20, 30.
But they were always like old drafts just kind of haunting us next to the computer of just like, oh right, remember when that used to be in the movie?
Is it as complex like in the movie where one little change, so you're making all these lines, if you change one thing, that cascades down the line and your plot now is moving in a lot of different ways based off of very small changes earlier on?
That's why it's a lot of old drafts, because we gave up on them. We're like, this is...
the note cards was too much work.
Exactly. But yeah, it was a lot of work, and to our producers' credit, they were very patient. They knew we were trying something new and we were purposely trying to break something. And ultimately, it just took. It was like a alchemy. You just kept trying things until it started to feel right. And so, yeah, we realized it was the family movie is like a 5-act structure, and the action movie is a 3-act structure that pauses halfway through and then doesn't stop until another 45 minutes later. And then the love story has to
cut a few music videos.
Exactly. So we started to kind of give it a rhythm and a way of making it work, but it was like, we were figuring it out all the way up until the edit, just like how to really fine-tune it, because we know this movie's a lot, and we kind of designed it for it to be a lot, but then we were trying to figure out how many people can we pull into our chaos before we lose them. I'm sorry we lost some of you guys, and that's okay. This movie is a lot. But for those of you who were on the journey the whole time, at least for us, when we're on the journey, even though we've watched this movie a million times, when we're on the journey, it's such a treat. It's such a fun roller coaster that stretches your soul in every direction, and that's what we wanted to give people. So, yeah.
What was the question?
I think it was, how are you guys?
Good.
All right, audience. I see you guys out there. Let's get to you guys.
Oh, I have one more thing, and then you're the first question.
Okay.
Just in case you didn't know, Jonathan Wang is our producer we've been working with since 2012. And so he was patiently there for all 6 years, and
he's just become a third Daniel. He's very important to our process. Like, he's
read every draft and
yeah.
Got it financed and got it all figured out. And so that's the guy to ask those questions to. Thank you, John.
It's interesting, and I'm sorry, I don't mean to keep 45 minutes later, we're gonna be like, ma'am, we're almost there.
Almost there.
But I think like people have a sense in watching movies what a writer director does, but a producer can be a little bit more nebulous. Can you explain like what your process is throughout those 6 years, beyond just being sort of a guiding light for these guys? Like what is your role in this sort of triumvirate of creative power?
Well, to jump in the deep end of what a producer does, everyone's going to just fall asleep and leave this Q&A. So I think we'll just leave it to what I do. And I think a good example of how, like, what I do is how we met. And we met at LA Film Festival like a decade ago. And the very first time we met, they're like, oh my God, you're half Chinese and, half white? You're the middle of us. And then like the very first meeting, we made a dumb video where like Dan Kwan turns the camera, Daniel Shiner turns the camera, they run towards each other and then poof, and then there's me waving. And it was like our very first thing is this like creative impulse. And I think
He
that
was infamous. We had a lot of mutual friends, so we wanted to make a movie to show our friends, maybe we finally met John.
Yeah, but I think that really what I do is I try to be a bit of a chameleon. So whatever they need someone to be more, all right, we need to figure out the casting deals. And then suddenly I put in my Bluetooth and I'm like a douchey agent. And then other times it's like, all right, we got to read this script and we really got to figure out the creative process. Then I put on the writer's hat. And so I think I kind of pride myself in being a jack of all trades. And so that's what I do for them. But what a producer does is for another Q&A panel.
And this time you were especially helpful because you speak better Chinese than Dan.
Sorry, June Kwan, I can see her right here. 中文学校, it was not very good for him. Yeah, sorry about that. But
Okay, as promised, first question from the audience.
So the film, first of all, absolutely amazing. Love the film. But the mother-daughter dynamic was just so original and beautiful and powerful. What was the inspiration there?
The question was, what is the inspiration for the mother-daughter relationship that was so powerful throughout the film?
Are you a mother?
I am not, but I
Okay.
have a very similar relationship with my mother in terms of like the struggles we have. So
Yeah. I mean, I think that's all it is. Like, you just write what you know, and we realized that this film was going to be about the generation gaps that happen, specifically for us, as we're millennials, so we grew up on the internet. We're one of the first generations to do so, and our parents didn't. And so I think that that made that gap just a chasm. And so it's kind of, this movie uses the multiverse almost as a metaphor for how the internet has like destroyed our minds, and now our parents are trying to figure out how to fix us, and so a lot of this is just kind of, this movie started out, and I was the son and I was the kid in that relationship. But it took us so long to work on this movie that I became the father. I have a kid now. And so now when I watch this movie, I am both those things at the same time. And it truly is one of the hardest things to do, is to be a parent. And like, I think this movie is in some ways a testament to that. But at the same time, to be a child of an immigrant is you're stuck in two worlds constantly. And I think we wanted to create something that was nuanced.
And to be an immigrant
And
is
to be
yet
an-
another
exactly,
journey.
exactly.
So like having Gong Gong there was important.
Totally. And so the goal for this film was to create a relationship that was so nuanced and so specific that it wouldn't get washed out by this movie, because this movie is big and loud and chaotic. And this film, in a lot of ways, it's like the theory of everything. Physicists are trying to figure out the theory of everything. How do we how do we reconcile quantum physics, the science of the smallest things, and like classical physics, which is like the physics of the cosmos. How can we make one theory that can combine those two things? And this movie is like, how can we take the smallest relationship and make it just as powerful as the existence of every multiverse, exploding. And that was one of the biggest goals. So I'm so glad it resonated with you. It's really personal. Thank you. Yeah, it's really personal. And like, yeah, that nuance is the thing that makes this movie work. Without it, it would just fall apart. Yeah.
Did you have something you wanted to add? That you look like you were
No, I
about
was going to say, great job, Dan.
You had mentioned there, I mean, and there are, everybody here saw it, there's a lot going on in this movie, and as somebody who has dealt with various levels of ADHD throughout their life, I walked away from it having one understanding, and I thought that was just something personal to me.
You have ADHD as well?
Adult ADHD, it's something that I've really struggled with, and this felt like a really strong personification of a lot of the way that I had felt. And I didn't know if that was just something that I brought to this, but there was something about turning what is a perceived weakness into your strength really spoke to me in a way, and I wondered if that was something that kind of was visible
You
through
didn't read this ahead of time? This isn't like the perfect question.
I told you guys I saw this in a movie theater with like two other people,
Right.
and I've done precious little research.
God.
Dan, does it have
So-
anything to do
I
with
don't
that?
have no idea. I mean, that's wild, and it's also like the director's favorite response is just hearing people say back to you what the intention was. But like we started writing this movie a long time ago, and we were like, I think the main character probably has undiagnosed ADHD. We should do some research to make sure we do it right.
It sort of started as like an almost insensitive idea to be like, what if the main character was so distractible they could tap into other universes? And so we were like, we should research this condition before putting it in the movie.
And then I just stayed up until 4 a.m, just crying and just realizing, holy shit, I have undiagnosed adult ADHD. If you can't tell, if you watch this movie, it's like, what the fuck? Of course, but it really was, it was this beautiful moment of basically healing, the first 25 years of my life. Basically, it was an opportunity for me to forgive myself for the first 25 years of my life, because I didn't. When were you diagnosed?
Only recently, through the pandemic, when it really started to bubble up to the surface in ways that were, before you could control it. You could keep that demon in a box, but then it was hard to come out. And then, you're right, there's a lot of blame that you do of yourself. You think of yourself, I'm a bad person, I can't concentrate, I don't know what I'm doing.
Worthless.
Right.
I can't, none of my friends can rely on me.
Yeah.
One of the
My
things-
co-director is mad at me.
Exactly. Well, here's the thing. It was transformative. I went to therapy for a year. Finally got the psychiatrist. I'm on meds on an as-need basis, and I'm in such a better place. Mental health is so important. And it's a really hard thing to talk about, especially in immigrant communities. Like, that's not something that a lot of them trust or even believe in. And so I'm in a much better place now, and I'm so excited to be able to connect with other people who have this similar experience, because if I can get a little PSA right now, like they've been doing a lot of studies recently about undiagnosed adult ADHD, and they found like this mind-boggling statistic. I think adults with ADHD who basically they have a 15-year their lifespan is cut by 15 years just because they have ADHD, and a lot of it comes down to depression and suicide, which is very real. Like the reason why this movie and Swiss Army Man deal with those kind of thoughts.
And you said high-risk behaviors was another one?
High-risk behaviors,
And he's into
gambling.
skateboarding now.
Yeah, I sprained my wrist a couple months ago. It's a wild thing, and if you don't know about it, you're not going to deal with it. And so I didn't realize that when we did Swiss Army Man, a lot of that deals with suicide and depression. And now I'm like, oh, duh, it's because I was undiagnosed and I didn't know my own brain. So I'm glad you got diagnosed. It's such a beautiful thing, and it really is such a beautiful thing to finally put a name on something that has been haunting you your whole life. So, anyways, this is a fun action movie.
Yeah,
I
wow.
hope you guys
Okay. I'm doing a bad job asking the questions, so let's go back to the audience. It's so bright. Woman right in the middle row with her hand up. She's looking up at the screen. Yeah. You're waving. Yep. Yeah.
Did you find it hard to pivot from Nothing Matters, so let's disappear into everything bagel, to Nothing Matters, so we're free? Especially as this went on through the pandemic, that's my last 2 years of therapy. So, was that change something that you came into it with, or did that kind of grow with the narrative?
I'm supposed to wrap these questions up in an easily digestible soundbite, and I don't.
She said nothing matters in a bad way,
Yeah.
nothing matters in a good way.
Right, how do you
she-
find
Was it hard
yeah.
to do that transition?
Yeah.
Do you guys want to do this, John? You can sit over.
Now you have to answer, though.
Okay, so
It was hard, and that was sort of one of the very early goals when we had a germ of a movie idea, was what if we made a multiverse movie that went so far that the idea of an infinite number of universes went to the conclusion of like, well then nothing matters, you know, like, oh,
which is honestly what every Marvel movie should be doing. It's like,
what matters now?
There's like 5 Spider-Men now.
Yeah.
Why? This doesn't
I
matter.
don't care.
No knock on Marvel. It's just the multiverse theory just should go that direction.
That's just where my brain always
Yeah.
goes when
Yeah.
you know aliens show up or there's time travel or there's multiple universes. Is like, well then what matters now? And that was sort of I think we like biting off a question we don't know the answer to, and then we're like, ooh, let's work on that for a few years because I'm pretty sure I won't, you know, get bored because I've got something kind of scary to chew on. So it was hard, and our answer changed a lot, and sometimes we would step away from the problem and be like, oh, maybe it won't go quite that far, and then we'd be like, wait, no, that's the point. Like we have to go to rock bottom, and then that felt really good to discover like how to pull ourselves out from that, and the idea that like, oh cool, now we can make a movie that takes anyone who's been to a very nihilistic place and give them some hope, which is later we realized like, oh, that's what a lot of our favorite art does, is like stares scarily close to the abyss and then gives you something hopeful in case that's where you are, you know?
If you guys want to talk more about this, John Wang is a philosophy major, and he'll be available after the Q&A.
Any other question? The gentleman right here in the white shirt. Yep. How many white shirts are there? This guy, right there. He's like pulling on his collar. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. So you guys like ride this wonderful line between like lowbrow humor and I don't want to say like sentimentality, but just like heartwarming sweetness. And I guess I'm just curious, like how you know you're in the right spot when you're like riding that line.
Balancing lowbrow humor and finding the right spot between sweetness and humor. So.
Yeah,
And hot
I
dog.
mean, I think we just viscerally love lowbrow humor, and also we're like deep down romantics who love like a nice sentimental scene, and so like the ideas come pretty naturally, and then the balance is like, yeah, it takes 6 years, and getting feedback and sharing the screenplay, and we tested rough cuts a lot, usually on like just 3 or 4 friends or strangers, but like not too many people, so we wouldn't get demoralized, but just constantly trying to figure out like where's the balance at, you know?
I also feel like we got a lot of
There used to be a lot more shots of the dildo, and multiple people were like, too many shots of it, like we don't have to rub it in.
But I think we have a lot of practice over our careers because we were just like screwing around in college with the camera, and we accidentally stumbled upon this weird, beautiful alchemy, mostly because you know, he was a big fan of like Tim and Eric and that kind of stuff, and I have good taste, so like that's but like
He watches more reality TV than me.
Oh, okay. It's the good stuff though. It's like, you know, Love on the Spectrum. It's like, you know, it's the art.
You watch the other stuff too.
Okay.
The one with the mask, where they wear the animal masks. You watch that whole thing. It's insufferable.
It's fascinating, guys. So what ended up happening was like we would start making like silly, stupid internet videos because, you know, this was 2010. YouTube was just happening. Vimeo was just starting to really become a thing, and we were like everyone else chasing the likes, chasing what would actually poke through. At the time, we didn't have the words for it, but I realized we were chasing the algorithm, right? And as we worked on that kind of stuff, we'd feel really dirty inside because it just didn't, it meant nothing. And this stuff takes so long. You know, even if you're making a short film, it takes so much time and effort that I would.
And our moms would watch it,
Right,
and they would
exactly.
react to the way Evelyn does in that hallway.
Exactly. And so we realized, like, if I'm going to be spending my life doing this, I want it to mean something. And so we just tried to see what would happen if we just slammed those two things together. The more stupid it was, the more sentimental and earnest we could push it, just to see what would happen. And I think we just kind of developed that weird magical combination over the course of the past 10 years through our short films, music videos, and, you know, Swiss Army Man. And I feel like this one in particular I feel very proud of the balance that we found, and it's it's a weird thing trying to dissect in retrospect how we came to our own voice, but that's kind of what you're asking. It's like how did we find this weird combination? But I'm
can brag about
oh yeah, you can, yeah, you
I can brag
yeah.
about them for a second. But I mean, really, the two of them, they stay young at heart because of the fact that like nothing is too sacred. It's like you can just look at something and laugh at anything, but also, you know, Daniel's like a total like earnest activist in a way that is very organic. It's not posturing. Him and his partner, they work to, you know, look for the marginalized and speak for them. And it's a very active thing that he does. Dan is similar, but he also thinks about it in a more philosophical, big picture way. But what roots them is like a genuine kindness and joy for storytelling. And I think when you have those two together, and it's not just posturing, it's organically just going to come out of them. So if it's like
And a joy for butthole humor.
but mainly butthole humor, yeah. Yeah, it's so many times I watch their manager, because I find it hilarious too, and they're pitching an idea and the manager just is starting to sweat, like, oh, no, please don't let that be the idea.
But that's usually how we know it's a good idea. If he starts sweating and he goes like, I don't know, and then he just shuts up and stops talking about it, we're like, okay, we're gonna bring this up tomorrow. Just see what happens.
You guys had, you mentioned, and it's been talked about, you've been working on this film for a while. I'd imagine when you started, the multiverse was not a concept that was on the forefront of a lot of people's brains, but now in 2022, I mean, Marvel doing their thing, and just in general, people have become more aware of the multiverse. Do you feel like that helped you tell this story because you don't have to deal in a ton of exposition in terms of explaining what a multiverse was? Were you a little bummed out that you were, you know, as you're going through this, you're like, oh shit, like multiverse is everywhere now? Like where was that for you guys as you were sort of prepping this and you noticed that as a concept was beginning to sort of make its way to the zeitgeist?
Yeah, we ended up, I think because I have ADHD, the multiverse is like super appealing to me because it's a beautiful bucket for me to, you know, try to combine everything that we come up with. We were coming up with ideas all the time. And so when we were like struggling to figure out what we were going to do next in 2016, like the multiverse became very attractive because we could somehow, you know, use it all. But we were doing multiverse stuff in like 2011. We did like a
You did it first.
No. It's just like we've been actively engaged in this kind of stuff because we love science and we love internet videos, and trying to combine all those things together is very interesting to us.
And we specifically love science fiction that has a sense of humor and also goes to philosophical.
Right, like
extremes.
Douglas Adams or Kurt Vonnegut, like obviously those are like staples. You could probably tell a little bit.
Or like anime films that
Right.
are like
Like
psychedelic.
Satoshi Kon and a lot of those kind of films are just such you know, mind expanding experiences. And so when we first started, I actually thought most people already were like, I was like, oh, we've already hit peak multiverse. Rick and Morty's everywhere. People are going, you know, I was like at that time I was like, oh great, we'll just ride this wave and everyone will know. And then like as the years went on, a new multiverse movie was announced or coming out, and we did get nervous. It was a little scary, but I think the one thing that really saved us is right before we started making the movie, we were bouncing the idea back and forth, and Shiner was like getting really frustrated because he's like, I don't care about multiverse movies because once the multiverse is introduced, like nothing matters. There is no choice, and like a character is nothing without his choices, and so like everything's watered down, nothing matters. Like this is stupid. And then that's when we're like, aha, okay, this is gonna be something that no one else will want to do because it's impossible, because it takes so long to kind of figure out how to make it work in a way that is actually satisfying. And so we kind of held that close to our hearts, and we're like, okay, we're gonna do a multiverse movie that goes fully, I mean, you already said this, fully into infinity and pulls you back out and gives you a big warm hug afterwards. And I don't think anyone else is gonna be trying to do that. And so that kind of gave us some confidence knowing that we would still deliver something unique, even in a year that like 5 multiverse movies are coming out. It's kind of wild. Yeah.
But this is the best one.
Oh, thank you. Thank you.
There's room for all of them, you know. Just
Sure.
save theaters is the point.
Where's that other guy in the white? I said guy in the white shirt, and 5 people were like, me? So is the other guy that guy? Yeah, right there.
Oh, hi. I wanted to ask about the casting of Michelle Yeoh because I thought I was reading an interview with you guys before. You said that she wasn't your first choice originally. I think it was supposed to be written as like a man in the role, and she was excellent in this movie. So I wanted to hear how
Yeah.
The question was casting Michelle, and originally he had heard a rumor that you had originally were thinking of somebody else for the role.
Yeah, we started writing a movie about a husband and wife, and so we were like, okay, Jackie Chan, Michelle Yeoh, that would be dope.
Yes, it's like to clarify, Michelle Yeoh was always going to be in the movie, but she was actually going to play the Wayman character, the one with the fanny pack. That was going to be Michelle Yeoh's character originally.
And basically, as we went, the mom wife character got way more interesting, and Jackie Chan got way more expensive, and but like it really like became a clearer, more personal project when Michelle's character became the protagonist. So, you know, it's not quite a gender swap, you know, it's sort of just like bad screenwriting. Eventually we figured it out, you know.
But it's because both of us, you know, we have very strong moms. My mom is in the audience right now. Say hi, Mom.
How strong are you? Oh, she's strong.
And so it just became so much easier for us to write towards that. It became so much more personal and so much more unique. You know, the quality of a frazzled mother running around trying to keep her life in check, then dipping into the multiverse is very funny, and like it just that kind of stuff I don't think would have come alive in the same way. And we're so grateful because not only that, Michelle Yeoh was just the sweetest and so down. Like she was such a brave person. Like the kind of stuff. Like almost every week she'd be like, maybe every day, she'd come up to us and be like, no director's ever asked me to do whatever you're asking me to do right now. like almost every day.
And then she'd be like, anyway, I'm gonna go do it now.
Yeah. So a lot of firsts for her, and she was so gracious. And you know, near the end of the shoot, one of the things that has always stuck with me is she, you know, after a long week of shooting, she came up to me and was like, I can't help but wonder what my life would be like, what my career would be like right now if I had done a movie like this a long time ago, you know, because like to her, she's like, people are finally going to see what I'm capable of, you know, and this is a woman who's been, you know, in movies for decades, and some of the biggest movies, and just like such a legend, and to have her say that to us was very humbling, but also it just kind of shows you how perfect she was for this role, because not many people would do it, but then also not many people would do it so graciously. Yeah.
And the other thing we kind of realized was that like the dudes who star in action movies aren't very relatable to us. And when Waymond became the pushover, like sweetie, like that was also more interesting to us. And so, you know, a lot of things kind of unlocked there. We were like, oh, this can be a celebration of a beta male instead of an alpha male. That's more interesting to us.
And guys, come on, if we hadn't done that, we wouldn't have gotten Ki Kwan back in the movie.
Right?
Like, this guy
It's a miracle.
he's amazing. I could talk about him all night. Next question. We'll save that for later.
Yeah, we got about 5 minutes left, so let's go through some questions real quick. Right
Before
over
we
here.
get to that question, though,
Oh.
I see Sunitha Mani, who killed it in our movie. So
Yes.
I want to wave to her. Great job.
Our hot dog singer on the TV.
And the star of Turn Down for What with
Yep.
Dan.
With this guy.
Maybe. Okay, we're right over here. Yep.
Yeah, so you said your movie is big and loud. You obviously have to see a lot of big in pre-production with wording, but a lot of your pacing is dictated by your sound design. So I'm kind of curious, how much of it do you hear in pre-production, and then how much are you finessing it through post?
Wow, a deep sound design question.
Yeah.
We love it.
Yeah.
Do you want to repeat the question?
Yeah. No.
Yeah. He asked about how much of sound design was just in post and how much was discussed beforehand, and
Usually when we pitch
both.
things together, it's usually like, and then it's like, and he's like, yeah, I got that, I know. But then what if it goes like, and then that's most of our
Which is
pitching
like
sessions.
score sound design mix.
Yeah. But we do think in sound. We think in rhythm. We come from music videos, so like music has always been a big inspiration for our visuals. So I have like a 10-hour playlist that we've been putting together over the course of making this movie. I just kept adding music to it,
and then we also had like a 1-hour playlist that were songs that were like extremely specifically appropriate for certain scenes,
Right.
and that became like a helpful thing for like all the crew and cast to be like, listen to this one. That's the opera song she's gonna sing as she hits people with
Right.
the sign.
But the nice thing is like our crew is so they're so open to our process, and so Brent Kaiser, the wonderful sound, and the rest of the wonderful sound team, they knew that we love to edit with sound, and we can't wait until the edit is locked. We're just filling it. Like there's like 30 tracks in a rough cut, just sound audio tracks, and he's like, okay, whatever you guys want to do. But they basically collect like gigabytes upon gigabytes of sounds that they think could really work well within this movie, and they just gave us this folder and said, you guys go crazy, and then we'll clean it up and make it better later, but like at least you guys can figure out your edit. And so 100% the edit is like tied to the sound design, tied to the music. We like with something as big as this, we kind of like cheated. We had to kind of create like a thing to pull you through. It was like a full-on water slide, and only a few times we decided, okay, no sound. Let's keep it simple. But otherwise, the sound is so crucial to giving you that feeling of forward momentum. And
The other
also,
thing-
the genre swapping is really important. That really, the sound design of music really helps with all that stuff.
The sound design and music. The other thing is that, like you said, there was this music playlist, and as we were building that, we discovered Son Lux's music, who scored the film.
Is Rafiq here?
Is Rafiq
And
here?
I think Rafiq was going to come tonight. Hey, Rafiq!
Oh, there he is, one of our composers.
And their music like borders on sound design at times, and we would chop it up and steal pieces of it while editing, and they gave us every song from all their solo albums as well as their like Son Lux albums without vocals, and so we got to kind of write to that and cut to that. And so there's a lot of scenes where it's extremely confusing where music ends and sound design begins, thanks to them. Yeah.
All right, we have time for one last question. Make it a good one. In the back, right? In that back corner, yep. Yeah, it's you.
I was just another casting question. How do you unearth these two Jamie Lee Curtis in that part?
How did you guys see Jamie Lee Curtis in the role of Deirdre Beaudeirdre? I don't know if anybody watched that, got it. I only noticed it afterwards, and I was like, her name is really Deirdre Beaudeirdre. It kind of went over.
You're not supposed to say it out loud. It's just like a little thing you
It's pronounced
secret.
Beaudeirdre.
Oh, okay. My bad.
Yeah, I mean, we're fans. She's incredible. We loved the idea of like Michelle facing off against an icon, and then Jamie just sparked to the script when we sent it to her, and
But mostly she sparked to Michelle Yeoh. She was like,
Yeah.
I get to be in the movie with Michelle Yeoh.
that's
And
true.
that was-
Yeah. And then she sparked to the character and working with Michelle Yeoh, not so much the script. She was like, I don't understand it, but she was so excited to like invent this like lived-in bureaucrat, villain. So we only sort of imagined her in it. We just knew that she was so talented, and then she made it her own, and it became something bigger and weirder than we had written. Because that's her vibe. Yeah, she's great.
Well, I mean, I could sit here all night talking with you guys. There's probably a million other questions we could go through. There's so much to discuss about this movie.